Hello and welcome back to my small little library. Yeah, this is the last video I will film in 2023 and it's the first video to come out in 2024. Well, except for the vlog that comes out on the first, but you know, the first like talking video. And I have decided to talk a little bit about the books on my TBR that are really high up on my priority list, and yeah, kind of like talk you through a little bit what might come in reviews later on in the year when I come around to these, and a little bit also about the books that got really neglected because I tend to forget that I own them. So yeah, let's talk about a rough outline of what I want to read in this coming year and what books are high on my priority list that I own already, because the goal is to really not buy that many books outside of the book box that I get. So let's start a little bit with series that I actually own as a series and not like one book from the series. And the first one is the second book in the Architect series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. That is Eyes of the Void. I mistakenly put this in the red shelf, which is why I did not remember that I haven't read it yet, but then I looked up on Goodreads and I haven't actually read it yet. So yeah, that is Adrian Tchaikovsky is the guy who wrote the Children of Time series. Love that series. I did also read the first one of the Architect series. I liked it. I didn't love it as much as Children of Time, but it's also still a really interesting idea that like there are a kind of architect type being out there that rewrites planets, and obviously like they like destroy pretty much like how the planet looks and reform it, and that's obviously really bad for like the inhabitants of the planet. And they did that with Earth so that the humans had to spread all over the galaxy, and in the first book they are seemingly coming back. And so this is continuing the series. I just completely forgot that I own that and that I still have to read it, so that is actually really high on my priority list. Then the second one is a series I already tried to read and it just was too close to finishing the first trilogy, and that is the second Mistborn trilogy. I finished the first one in the second half of this year, and I was so into it that I decided to like directly start with the second trilogy, but because there's so much time between the first one and the second one, and just the whole setting is so different, that really didn't work out for me. But yeah, a priority is to finish the second Mistborn trilogy and buy myself the seventh book, because there's one more out there. So that is the idea, and yeah, hopefully I can do that. I'm still afraid of the setting because I love the first trilogy so much, and this changes things, and I don't know if I'm ready for those changes, but I do want to read it. So of all the Brandon Sanderson series that I still have to read, this is the one with the most priority. Then we have a series that I'm plainly just afraid of, and that is actually the, I don't know if it has a name, now that I think about it, but you know The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the first one, and I actually own the trilogy. I don't know when I read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's quite a while ago, before I ever made this channel, so I haven't talked about the book on here. But it is an incredibly heavy book. I love the movie. I did watch the movie way before I ever read the book. And I read the book maybe like 2 years ago now, and that is like, I own these books since then. And I haven't really tried to continue with the series because it is kind of a traumatizing series. Like, there's stuff happening in that book that I don't want to talk about, that I find really hard to read about. And I didn't like the ending per se because of the relationship of the main characters. You have Lisbeth, I think is her name, and then, you know, the journalist type of guy, and they don't end like the book nicely on like good terms. They've ended on really weird terms, and I'm really afraid how it's going to continue. So that is why I haven't continued with the series, but I desperately need to, because obviously at some point I have to read them because I own them, and I did like the first book. It's just that it's a really hard read. If you've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you've not, don't read it if you're not ready for like a lot of sexual abuse in a book. It's a lot. and it's not nice. I mean, she gets revenge in the book, but it's horrible. Just, yeah. So, I need to read these. It is too long that they're on my shelf. It's one of the longest series on my shelf. And yeah, so I read it. Well, I need to read it. Hopefully I will read it. And the second, or the last, like, complete series that I own that I need to read is the one that is the longest on my shelf, from all of the books on my TBR. It's kind of funny. Yeah, it's, oh god, what's the English name? The Hunger Games. And I still have only read the first book. I've only watched the first movie. I'd, seen all of the, like, TikToks and stuff, the shorts, about what happens, It's not that I don't know the story, I know the rough outline, but I have never continued with these, and I desperately, desperately need to. These are now the books that are longest on my TBR. And yeah, they aren't even that thick, It's just, I kind of like standalones. I don't like series. For me, The Hunger Games was like a really, really good standalone technically, even though it is a series. So I kind of dragging my feet to continue it, but yeah, that is one of the goals this year. This one needs to be read. I don't know if I want to watch the movies, because I personally also don't really like series when it comes to movies. Like, I loved, The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I did like the Harry Potter movies, stuff like that, is where I do tolerate that. But for something like The Hunger Games, where I'm like already with like, I would love it to be a standalone, I also love the movie to be like one, and I don't really feel the need to watch the other ones. So yeah, I would be actually really happy if I managed to read the series finally. I mean, there's also the Ballad of Songbirds, and I don't know, the prequel to those. I don't even know if I will buy that, because I don't think I'm that invested in the story. But yeah, if you've read that and you think it's sensible to read, like, maybe tell me down below, but I haven't gotten the impression that one needs to buy it, so I'm not really that much convinced that I will need to buy it, So those are the series that I own completely that are really, really top of my priority for the next year coming. And then now let's come to the standalones, or the ones where I only own one book of the series, and I don't really see myself buying more of the series, because obviously I haven't read these yet, but I won't buy more unless I've read the first one, because I tend to do that, and then I don't like the first one and I have the rest of the series. It's a dumb thing to do. But the first thing I really, really want to read is this copy of the Edgar Allan Poe tales. This is a complete version of all of his writings, and I made this wonderful, wonderful find on like a flea market like a couple of years ago, like maybe like 8 years ago. I have still not read this. It is kind of an old book. It did have a dust jacket, but the dust jacket was so broken that I had to throw it away, But yeah, this is a version. This was published in 1984, so it is 40 years now. I still haven't gotten around to read it, even though I'm really, really interested. I know a few of the stories that are like really, really popular, but I'm really interested to read the rest. So this is like pretty much like a complete year-round goal, to like read one story or like 2 stories a month, and then slowly make my way through that without getting burnt out on the stories. Because one thing I realized is short story collections, I love them when they combine different authors. If there are too many short stories from like one author, I get tired of them. So I have to kind of like make it like a slow thing throughout the year. Then we have a book that I have on my TBR for quite a while also, and that is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is the first book in the series. I think the rest are out now. I find the idea of the book really, really interesting. You have our main character, she's in a prison and she is a healer, and she tries to help as best as she can, and then I think the queen or something gets thrown in there, and she has to make a deal with her pretty much to save her and in turn break out of the prison. And yeah, overthrew the government, I think, something like that. I'm not that sure anymore because this is quite a long time ago. It is a fairy loot and I don't get the fairy loot now for quite some time. So yeah, this was on my TBR and I always forget that I own it. It is one, like, you know, I have it in my hand and I'm like, oh, that sounds so interesting. And then I put it back on the shelf and forget that I ever knew that I owned it. So yeah, high priority. I do want to know what it's about because I heard really, really good things about it. Then we have another book that I heard so many good things about, which is why I bought it and then I never read it. And that is The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. I know nothing about the book. I have never read it. I bought this really, really nice copy and then yeah, I put it on my shelf. I forgot about it. It is a fantasy, that much I know. And yeah, this is the 10th anniversary edition. Really, really pretty version. Yeah, I just haven't gotten around to it yet and I really, really need to. Which is like a theme with more or less all of these books. Because the next one, scythe. I can't pronounce that word. I have a small lisp when I speak English. In German, I don't have a lisp. But I feel like when I speak English, I have a hard time with like THs and S's. So, can't pronounce this properly. But it's by Neil Schusterman. And this was a really, really popular series. And this is the reason why I bought the series and then I never read it. I started it and I lost interest like maybe like 20-30 pages in because, you know, I got some other books that I really wanted to read. Same old story. I think we all know the story, right? And so I never actually continued with it. So yeah, I should, really. Because this is on my TBR for so long now. Because I always forget that I own it. Yeah, now we have two books that I actually have aren't on my TBR for that long. And that is The Tooth Fairy by Graham Joyce and Eyes of Prey by Barry Hoffman. And these are two of the older horror books I bought and I definitely want to finish all of those that I got in the eBay box of old horror books because I had a lot of bad books in that and I kind of want to be done with all of the books from that because I feel like I'm dragging my feet because I'm afraid that these will be equally bad as most of the rest of the books. But I obviously don't know and I kind of want to start looking more into like the really popular old horror books. I think they're collectively known as the paperbacks from hell. Yeah, I want to look more into that, but before I can make room for them, I obviously have to read the ones that I own because the goal is to get the TBR down. So yeah, these are two that are high on my priority list. They sound interesting. So yeah, this is like, you know, somebody who witnessed a murder as a child and the murder's still out there. And I mean, the Tooth Fairy, but in horror, we all can imagine what that is like. So yeah, they sound interesting. Hopefully they are good. I don't believe in that right now, but I really want to read them. And then we have the next one, and this kind of stands for all of the ones I own. This is The Guardian by John Grisham. I actually own quite a few books by him because they were really, really popular. This particular one I bought because I went into a bookstore and they were really, really nice and they, you know, I wanted English books. It's a German bookstore, an independent German bookstore. They didn't have really that many English books and so she took her time and really explained to me what they have. And so I bought a book pretty much out of guilt because the woman did such a nice job. I didn't want to go out and not buy a book because she took her time and there weren't any other books that I sounded interesting or I didn't own already, so I bought this one. And then I got a few others, you know, in secondhand boxes and stuff like that. So I do own a lot of John Grisham. I have never read a book by him. So one of the goals of the year is to finally make a dent in my John Grisham collection and hopefully, I like them. I like true crime, so I think that might not be that far off because John Grisham writes, oh, what would they be called? Like books about judges, mostly, you know, and the whole court process. I do know I own one that is also kind of a true crime novel by him, where the book is based on like a true story of somebody who got wrongly convicted, I think. But yeah, so I do own a few. This is representative for all of those books. I need to start and finally read one of them to know if I like them, because if not, I have a lot of books to give away. And then we have two more. This one because I like the cover. It looks really, really nice. It's called The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. Look at that cover. It's so cool. And yeah, it sounded really, really interesting. I think this was the last Fairy Loot book I ever got. After that, I think I cancelled the box because I didn't like the decor and merch that came with the stuff. And I didn't have the money to, you know, get stuff I don't really want. So yeah, that is also on there because I do need to make a dent in the books. I have quite a few unread still, and yeah, I hate that a little bit because it shouldn't be too hard to, you know, read one book a month that I get in that month. But I don't seem to be able to manage that, so I have to make a dent in that. And then we have the last one because I like the first one, I like the other books by her. I still haven't read The Crooked Kingdom by Lee Bardugo. I have a few other books by her that I desperately need to buy that I want to read. But yeah, this one I own and I still haven't read yet. The second book in a duology. The first one, I already forgot the name. Oh, Six of Crows is the first one. And then this is the second one. I really liked Six of Crows. I gave it, I think, 4.5 stars or like 4 stars. So yeah, I just need to pick this up. I just forget, as always. So yeah, hopefully I will get to that as well. And yeah, those are the books with like the highest priority on my TBR. As you can see, a lot of fantasy, very little sci-fi. I have not that many sci-fi books on my TBR, which I'm really sad about, so I might have to buy some sci-fi books throughout the year, but only if I make a good dent in my TBR. Otherwise, I will not allow myself to do that. But yeah, these have kind of the highest priority, and then we'll see and go from there. I do assume that I will read quite a lot throughout the year because I always do that, but please hold me accountable for these books. That would be great. I kind of need somebody who holds me accountable to what I plan on reading, so that is what this video is for. I kind of can look, you know, at the end of the year and we'll see how many of these I actually read at the end of the year. I think that would be kind of a good idea. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe leave down below what are the books that you desperately want to read in 2024, and yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next video, and I hope you're having a good start to the year. Bye bye!